Hi there. Welcome to another of our beginner watercolor videos. Today I'm going to be talking about color, and this is one of those videos that people tend to want to skip and jump right into painting. I get it. I really do. But it's important stuff. We're going to make a color wheel, which will be very helpful for learning how to keep your colors clean, how to avoid mud. So what we are going to do is I'm going to jump over to the page and start describing how we're going to lay this out. Before I lay it out, what I would like to do is tell you that I borrowed this color wheel from a really good Canadian watercolorist, Krista Hassan. She broke the primaries into a warm and cool, which I'll show you in a second, to help you see which colors to use to create your secondaries. I think it's brilliant. I think it really, really does the job for making the color wheel make sense. And I always get the question from beginners on, I don't understand the warm and the cool colors. So this will really help you with that and help you to keep your colors clean on the palette and clean in your paintings. So let's switch over. There we go. Okay, so we have the color wheel in front of us. As you can see, the sections are broken up into the area for the yellow, so our primaries are yellow, red, and blue, but they're split into a warm yellow and a cool yellow, and a warm red and a cool red, and a warm blue and a cool blue. This is really going to help you understand what the warms and cools are. So in your yellows, if your yellow tends to have a secondary color of blue in it, so if your yellow is a little bit green, that's your cooler yellow. And if your yellow is tending towards orange or red, then it's a warmer color. Why is this important? When you go to make your secondary colors, when you go to make your green, your orange, and your purple, you want to use the warm versions of the two primaries that are making it so that you don't start to introduce gray and neutralize the color and make mud. So we're going to start out with our yellows. I'm going to activate them here on my pan. And this is the cooler of my two yellows. It's actually quite a primer. Yellow is such a warm color that really the neutral yellow tends towards being considered the cool one. All right. For my warm, I'm going to use an earthy color, and you'll side by side you'll be able to see the difference between warm and cool. The warm is yellow ochre. Again, this is an earth tone color. It's used in a lot of painting palettes, and you can see already it tends towards orange, where this tends to be a pure yellow or a yellow with a little bit of green in it. So, moving on to the rest of our primary colors, let's just get those on here first. Here is our pyrrole red. And I could have used a cadmium red if I had one in this set. But the pyrrole is a warm to neutral red. And when you see it next to the quinacridone magenta, you'll see that it's a warmer color. Okay, got that on there. And here is our quinacridone magenta, which you can see is more purpley. It's got more blue in it. And by splitting up your primaries, so by splitting your red, blue, and yellow into warmer and cooler versions of your colors, it really helps you to make those secondary colors, the orange, the green, and the purple, that give you the full set of colors that you need. You can really do almost all of your painting with these 6 colors, with the 6 primaries, and then making your secondaries from there. Let's move on to our blues. And our warmer blue is going to be ultramarine. And that's one I use quite a bit on this palette. Let's get a little bit more pigment in there. And since it's wet, remember, since this is wet, it will run and it won't get all blocky. Drying out my brush and just soaking up some of there that's sitting at the bottom. I'm working at an angle, which helps the paint flow. I do that also because it helps with getting the video camera in the right position. And our last color of the primaries, this is phthalo blue. And looking at the phthalo blue, which is a very strong tinting color, by the way, you have to be very careful with phthalo blue when you're mixing it to make a little puddle of it off to the side and introduce it slowly, because this will dominate any color that it is in contact with. But now in looking, you can see that the ultramarine looks a little bit more purpley red compared to this color, which is a little bit more green, the phthalo blue. They're not showing up entirely that way on, well, they are, but just not to the degree that you are seeing, that I'm seeing them here. But this is definitely how it's going to work. All right, so now we want to make our secondary colors. Let's start with the purple. We're going to use the quinacridone magenta because that's a red that's got some blue in it, and the ultramarine blue, which is a blue that has some red in it. Red and blue make purple. By not using the colors that have green or yellow biases in them, you'll keep this color clean. Watercolor is all about transparency and clean colors, at least for me. I mean, mud has its place, especially for showing off other colors sometimes. But when you're first starting out and you want to learn how to get your paint colors to sing, this is where you want to go. And just mixing it up here. All right. Now we're putting down our purple made from ultramarine blue and quinacridone magenta. We could have also used alizarin crimson in this mix for the red, but this specific palette, the 12 color pan set from QOR core is really meant to work together, and they've worked hard to pick the colors that they're going to use to make up those 12 colors. They play together. It's very hard to make mud. So in this case, I went with the quinacridone magenta, which is a lovely color and makes a really nice pink. Okay, so there's our purple, and it's between that blue and that red. If I had used the phthalo blue and the pyrrole red, we would have gotten a purple, but it would have been dull. It would have been more to the gray side of purple, and it wouldn't have looked quite right for what we're trying to do. Later, you're going to want to experiment with making your secondary colors from the duller ones. As you start to move past making very clean mixtures, the world is not full of all clean colored scenes. I tend to paint with my color turned up to 11, but you may not want to. You might want subtle and subdued, and just because this set is high intensity and very high saturation doesn't mean you can't make nice grays and toned down colors. Okay, so we're going to make our green out of the Hansa yellow and a tiny bit of the phthalo blue. All right, now I put a little bit too much of that phthalo blue in there, like I told you was going to happen. There. Now we've got a nice clean green. And greens are tough to mix. You want to know what colors you need to use to make the kind of green you want. In the QOR 12 color pan set, they've included sap green, which works really well with the Diox purple that they have in the set already. Again, this is Hansa yellow and phthalo blue, and that makes a lovely, very alive green. And lastly, we're going to go to our orange. Now, I don't mix orange a lot anymore, at least when I'm using this set, because the transparent Pyrrole orange in this QOR 12 color set is phenomenal. But if I needed to, I would use some of that nice yellow ochre. And then I'd grab a little bit of the Pyrrole red. And the Pyrrole red is a lot like the phthalo blue in that it's a strong tinting color and tends to take over what you're mixing. So I'm putting a bunch more yellow ochre. And here, you can see we have our orange, and it's nice and transparent. It's a nice strong color. When it comes to yellows and oranges, they tend to run because they were almost always made in the cadmium family of minerals. They always tended to be a little bit opaque and chalky. This is a very nice transparent color, and I'm very happy to play with it. So there you have it. This is an interesting way to develop your colors. And you can build one of these color wheels yourself with your colors, and it's important to do it because the tints on everybody's palettes are different unless you're using the exact same brand and set of colors. So go ahead and look at your blues and find the warmest version and the coolest version of the blue. You can even, activate the colors and put them out on a piece of paper and look at them and write their names down until you find the ones that are the warm one and the cool one. And then do the same thing for the yellow and for the red. When you lay out your color chart, your color wheel, the outer ring is your primary colors, your red, blue, and yellow. Divide the space into two, and then make an inner ring so that the colors are connected. You can see that like the ultramarine blue here and the quinacridone magenta here, we use the space on the inner ring to show off the purple that they make. I would really suggest doing this. It will help you understand the colors on your palette and what you can make, and it's a handy reference to have in your sketchbooks to help you build the right colors and help you decide if you want to verge off of the path of the transparencies by perhaps making a warm yellow and a cool blue that would run more to the yellow side, more of a natural green that you might find in nature for grasses and such. So with that, happy painting. Don't blow past this one. It'll really help you. I'm going to add a few minutes on to here, which include making grays from complementary colors. So from the purple and the yellow, making a gray. The green and the red, you can make gray. And the blue and the orange, you can make gray. And you can control the warmth of your gray because it can run to the warm, earthy kind of colors or to the cooler, bluer kinds of grays, depending on what color primary you put in. So I'm going to build out 3 grays from 3 sets of complements. That'll be in the next segment. We'll do that quickly, and then we'll get you off and running onto some other paintings. So with that, happy painting. Hey there, we're back. We're going to build out some grays using the complementary colors of yellow and purple, red and green, and blue and orange. And for this demo, rather than build the colors separately, I'm going to use all colors that are available in my 12 color pan set. The pan set is made by QOR, which is the Golden Paint Company. I'm sure you've heard of them for their acrylics. This is their brand of watercolors that takes advantage of some new technologies in binders, a proprietary chemical called Aquazol instead of the traditional gum arabic, which was used for thousands of years in watercolor. Enough said about that. Let's start to build out our grays. And let me switch over to here to the color bars so you can see them. Okay. All right, starting with yellow on the left-hand side, and this is the cadmium primrose from the set. And I'm going at it with a pretty strong mix of the yellow and add some more tint to it back here. And then start to pull it over with some water towards the middle. Now let's go from the other direction with the Diox purple from the set. And what I will say about this Diox purple is the same warning I will give you about the phthalo blue. This is a very strong tinting color and will tend to overtake anything that it comes in contact with. So you have to be aware of that when you're playing with it and mixing. Now, what you'll notice when you get the cadmium primrose and the purple together, you get a very lovely gray. It's to the warm side, but it's a very usable gray. It shows up in my painting quite a bit. That band there in the middle there is really the color that I'm talking about. And it works really well. It's on the warm side. If I was going to use this but would want to cool it down, I would use just a touch of phthalo blue just to introduce that blue-green color into that mix, and it would really gray out that gray, really tone down that gray. All right, let's move on to the next two colors. And that's going to be the sap green, and we'll use the pyrrole red for that. So starting with the really lovely deep sap green from this set. I can't say enough about this color. It's definitely on the warm side of greens. It's warmer than the green we made in our color wheel. But this is a great color green for nature and for mixing stuff in nature. I find a lot of the tube greens are very harsh and chemical and don't make the color I want to make. This is one of the few tube greens that I really like a great deal. And since this is warm, I'm actually going to change up, and rather than use the pyrrole red, which is also warm, I'm coming at it with the magenta, which is technically the actual complement of green. So a cooler red, one that's got some blue in it, working with a green that's warm and has some yellow in it, can really mix nicely. All right, so we've got the red coming towards the green. Let's activate this with a little bit more green into the red. See what happens when those two actually hit each other. Okay. So this tends to be, even here, a bit of a warm gray. Now as you see, the one up above dried down to a nice blue gray. This is going to be in that warmer space of grays. Handy to know, again, when you're painting leaves and grasses, that a little quinacridone magenta will tend that towards the brown and give you a gray that's found in the forest quite a bit. That's a really nice color. I really, really recommend you guys do this. Make grays out of your complements. Do it with several versions of your colors to really understand what your colors are about and what they can do when they're used together. Moving on, this is that transparent orange, the pyrrole orange that I was raving about. Look at how transparent that is. It is beautiful. It's a strong color, but it's wonderfully transparent and does terrific things with glazes where you're painting on top of another color. Really, really can be quite a luxurious color. And mixed with that sap green above, you get a really warm brown foresty kind of color. It's a really nice color that you'd really like to have in your paintings. All right, so now we have the orange down. And I'm going to grab a blue, and I'm going to grab some of that phthalo and work from this direction. And as you see, that phthalo that I grabbed and put on my brush is really strong. So as I start to move over towards the orange, I'm not going to pick up a lot more paint. I'm actually going to do it by bringing it over with water. And here you see, as they start to come together, this is probably the grayest gray of the bunch. See if I can get those to play. The orange was drying a little bit already. There we go. I'm doing this demo in my 9x12 Arteza watercolor sketchbook. This is the one that I bring to class all the time. The paper is really, really nice and heavy. The paper is really, really nice and heavy. It works great for demos and for out in the field. This is the same book that I use for urban sketching because it's easy to carry. The paper holds up without folding up much. It doesn't wrinkle too badly. In fact, it hardly wrinkles at all. So it's one of my favorites to carry with this little 12 color pan set and some portable travel brushes. All I need then is just a little water and I'm good to go. I hope this was helpful. I will probably do in the future one more exercise in color when you start to get into choosing your own color triads. And we're gonna borrow from the James Gurney triad that he developed as a tool to see what colors you can make out of only 3 colors. Because a triad can be any 3 colors. They're typically red, blue, and yellow, but you can really use any 3, see what you get, and you might want to use it for a warm but monochrome painting. And this is one way to get there. So with that, happy painting, and I'll see you in the next video.